Okay. Welcome to the Conserve Your Energy podcast on Sunday, September 8th, 2024. And we're excited to bring you another powerful and insightful episode today with a truly distinguished panel of guests. Joining us is my co-host, Minister Fredrick Norman. And we have a very special guest. His name is Pastor Everett Spencer Sr. And you can correct me if any of this information that I have is not uh, in alignment. He's a graduate of Judah School of Ministry in Columbus, Ohio. Has an incredible resume of service within the church, from senior pastor to youth pastor, worship leader, and much more. His experience runs deep. He's also known for his impactful work as a conference speaker, motivator, and teacher, helping to strengthen churches and communities alike. And I wanted to give Pastor Spencer the opportunity to introduce himself. And you can take, 30 seconds to a minute, let us know who you are, and then we can get started.
Hey, thank you for having me on. First of all, I want to say I owe whoever did that bio for you. I owe them $5 and a sandwich for talking so good about. Uh, we also, we do our best to make the most of what God has given us, and so we're also an entrepreneur. Um, I've owned a real estate investment business. I've owned a insurance business. I've owned a tax business. And so we've just followed our various interests, and God have used those to help us expand our knowledge and our ability to serve our community. We just got back from Africa, and so now we're expanding our influence to Africa and using what God has given us to help the motherland. So we're very proud of that as well.
And what is the name of the current church that you are overseeing, that you are pastoring?
Our church is New Dimensions Church. We're here in Noonan, Georgia. That's where the church is located. We'll be celebrating our 11th year as a church. The third Sunday in October is when we're going to do the celebration. 11th year as a church, and so we focus heavily on discipleship and trying to help people. I don't believe in the whole religious thing. I believe that people have to know how to live their faith daily, and so that's what we try to help people do. How do you live your faith daily? How do you live it in your workplace? How do you live it in your business, and without being a religious kook? And so that's basically what we do as a ministry.
Okay. Um, I was going to allow uh, Minister Fredrick to say a brief word, but he seems to have. There he is. He's popped back on. And how are you doing, Minister Fredrick? It's good to see you. Since the last time
Yes,
we
sir.
got.
Thank you, Mr. Dash. Doing brother. Yes, I'm doing great. I'm here in the ATL currently. For another event that was supposed to transpire, but nonetheless, making the most of every opportunity, great opportunity to fellowship with Pastor Spencer this morning down in Noonan at New Dimensions Church. He is my pastor, here locally and everything. So I'm so thankful, for him and the vast array of knowledge, wisdom that he brings, to the not but to the community. His the community, all the way down. So to be in a company such as yourself and everything, and a woman like yourself, Mr. Adas, who's doing great things, in the community as pertains to business, on the political side, and bring, this to this CONSERVE YA ENERGY podcast, to the people so that they might be enlightened, educated, and empowered. Definitely glad to be on board.
Yes, and we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I don't know if it's are you on your tablet? Because your sound was coming in and out, and your picture is you know intermittent as well. So I don't know if it's your
Um,
tablet, but today's
I'm, I'm,
discussion,
no,
we wanted to go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, today's discussion we wanted to
no,
center.
I'm on my phone, so I don't know if I'm in the hotel.
Okay,
Are
okay.
you on the hotel Wi-Fi? Can you hear me?
No, I'm just on my regular.
You might want to connect to the Wi-Fi, get a more stable connection.
Yeah, yeah, that might be a good idea, but that might take a minute for you to do
Okay.
because you
All right.
have to
Well,
get.
well, you all carry on. Let me uh get connected and everything, and I'll
Okay,
jump back in.
okay. So we wanted to. I've heard great things about you, Pastor Spencer, and some of the things that you're involved in. We wanted to center on the ways that the Black community can create generational wealth through estate planning, which is an often overlooked but essential strategy for securing the future. We want to dive into some topics like life insurance, particularly why Black men have the lowest participation rate in the country and the broader implications of that gap. So we want to start off with the basic question of what role does estate planning play in creating generational wealth, and why is it especially important for the Black community?
Um, I think let me deal with the second part of that. Why it's important for the Black community first. I think one of the things that we've done and we've been taught to do as a community is we've been taught to look outside of ourselves for solutions. And so whether it's the Democratic Party or whomever, we tend to look to others to help us and deliver us instead of becoming our own deliverer, instead of being able to strategize and think strategically and saying, what can I do to make sure that the next generation has it better than me? And I tell people all the time, the cheapest money you'll ever buy is life insurance.
Okay.
You know, it's cheap. It's ridiculous. I mean, if okay, I give people this analogy. I say, okay, would you like to have $1 million? Everybody always say yes. I said, if I could sell you $1 million, I'm talking $1 million cash. If I could sell it to you right now for $50, would you be willing to buy a briefcase with $1 million in it and it only costs you $50?
Hmm.
Everybody
Absolutely.
says, everybody says yes.
Yes.
I said, that's what life insurance is. It's a briefcase full of money that you can get for a lesser amount of money. Now you have to understand the concept of insurance. You know, the concept of insurance is to make whole, to to put you in a position that is comparable to the position you were in before a traumatic event. So if we're talking about homeowners insurance, you got a home. Let's say your home is 2,500 square feet. Let's say your home is appraised at $550,000, and there's a storm that comes through, totally decimates your home. You've got another, let's say, $300,000 worth of assets in the home, furniture, clothes, blah 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 blah. The insurance company's job, if you have a good insurance company, the insurance company's job is to put you as close as possible back to the condition you were in before you had that loss. You understand? So they come back in, they assess everything. They're going to help you buy new furniture. They're going to help repair the house. They're going to blah, 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 blah. So that everything is as close to what it was before you had the house. Now, here's the question. I ask people this all the time. How do I do that with life insurance?
Well, we don't want to jump. We don't want to jump too far ahead because
Okay.
that's really going to the crux of what. Um, but one of the things I wanted to ask you in regard to that. do you feel that it is the idea that, well, it comes at a loss, so people don't want to have that conversation? I know I've had that experience in my own family where it's like this the idea, the thought that in order to achieve that, in order to access those funds, there's a cost, and the cost is not necessarily the monies that you pay into it, but the idea that someone is going to pass away, and when someone passes away, so they don't want to have that very sensitive conversation, and do we miss out on it because we don't want to have a conversation, and how can we shift that mindset?
The short answer is yes, you're exactly right. It's an uncomfortable conversation. But one of the things I try to teach people is, and this is where even the church has failed. I tell people all the time, the church has failed to let people know that death is a part of life. In other words, when you were born, you were already born with a date with death. We're all going to die. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how poor you are. Everybody is going to die. The scripture literally says it's appointed unto man to die, and after that the judgment. So we have an appointment with death. We all have it, and not having the conversation doesn't change that reality. Because if you're scared to have the conversation, then you can't access what's there to help you deal with it. Because here's the bottom line: if I die, me, Everett Spencer, there is no way for my family to replace me. But what they can replace is what I did for them. They can replace my income. And that's what life insurance really is. It's about replacing the income so that the family can go on and there's a family legacy of 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 wealth and legacy and heritage, and you know what I mean?
Right,
So that my granddaughters know when I could die tomorrow and they know we were able to go to college because Poppy did what he was supposed to do.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And so the scripture says this. The scripture says, "A man who does not provide for his own is worse than an unbeliever."
Mm,
And so
mm.
we in our culture have made it, and I tell people when you talk about this, you can't talk about it in any other context. Yes, it is a part of the legacy of slavery because we were bred as in slavery, we were bred as animals, and the children were ripped away to go be sold to another plantation. And so there's still sometimes is in our community this idea that we can produce children and not be supportive of them and not care what happens to them. But this is not the habits of a righteous man. The righteous man makes sure that he does everything in his power to provide for his family and his heirs to do better than he did.
Now, I'll tell you something interesting. We just had this week an interesting conversation that came up, and I'm sure Minister Fredrick was privy to one of the posts that I made earlier this week. But I was just completely disgusted with the conversation of asking these individuals that are running for office how they're going to make childcare affordable. And it just hit me when I'm looking at these people and I'm listening to the answers. I don't care who it was, from Kamala Harris to JD Vance, and they're giving these answers, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, when did we become so indoctrinated that we got into the mindset that the government is responsible for making the life of my child affordable? And it's like we constantly constantly go towards the government for all of our problems and all of our issues. Like, if you don't have the financial fortitude or the resources before you made the decision to have the child, now you have the child, and you want the government to come in here and impose on the private sector that y'all need to make this child care affordable because somebody needs to help me take care of my child. What? Where does that come from? Where does it? Where does that? What is the misconceptions, the common misconceptions about within the Black community? Where does that mindset come from? Where does that begin?
Well, now, Frederick, you didn't tell me that this guy was a troublemaker because now he gonna get me in trouble. Um,
You know, I
you know,
only hang out with troublemakers.
one of the things that and I'll be honest with you, and this is just me being very candid and being extremely frank. Um, I am not well received as a speaker in the Black community because my message centers on personal responsibility. and
Period.
and when we don't want to take, I tell people all the time, I had a guy, he was telling me about his child support problems and he was telling me all this. I said, I never had a child support problem. He said, you didn't? I said, no. I said, because I stayed in the home and took care of my kids. I said, and even when me and my wife got to the point where we were talking about divorce, I said, because we've been married 40 years, there was a point where we were talking about divorce.
Mm,
And I sat her down and I told her, okay, you don't have to go to the courts. Here's what I'm going to do for my kids. And if they need anything other than this, you just call me. I'll make it happen. Because see, I grew up in a very patriarchal family. The men in my family, they set a certain standard. This is what we do. We take care of our family. We do this, we do that. So that's all I ever saw. And so the first problem is that the deconstructing of the Black family, since we're talking about it, Lyndon Baines Johnson is the one who ruined the Black family with
yeah.
his great society and telling people, well, the government will come in and help you with child care, the government will come in and help you with food stamps, but there can't be a man in the house.
Yeah.
And so in order for a woman to get food for her children, her husband had to leave the home. You understand? And so now we have this whole mentality that instead of looking to ourselves, and instead of, let's be honest, instead of Black men being responsible for the children. I read a story the other day. This guy is 35 years old and has 40 children.
Wow.
40, and he's actually bragging about having 40 children. And I'm like, but you ain't taking care of none of them.
You can't be.
You see what I'm saying? Hey, these celebrities, these dudes that make this unrealistic amount of money, they're out here just listen. They can, if they can have those kind of kids and take care of them financially. I wonder how you take care of them emotionally, but if you can take care of them financially, more power to you. But what I say to people is, we have to get back to understanding that we were stronger as a society when we lived in community. In other words, if me and Mr. Odessa and Fredrick all lived on the same block, they knew my kids, I knew their kids. They knew my wife, I knew their wife. And so when I grew up, if I was down, I was living with my grandfather at the time, and I was down the street doing something I ain't had no business. And Miss Mary came out on her porch and yelled off her porch, "Boy, get over here." Now, y'all, I'm not that old. This wasn't that long ago. And
Right.
she called me over and she scolded me and she told me, you know better than that. And I know your granddaddy would not let you be out here acting like this. And she literally told me, she said, walk that bike home. Don't you get on that bike. You walk that bike home. I'm calling your granddaddy to tell him you're on your way. By the time I got to the house, my grandfather was standing at the door waiting on me.
Mm.
And he said these words: why did Miss Mary have to say anything to you? And I said, but I wasn't doing what she said. He said, so now you calling her a liar? I said, no, sir. He said, oh, yeah, you are. He said, but I'm going to teach you that you got to learn how to act when I'm not around. We had community.
Right.
We didn't shrink away from lovingly correcting one another's children and saying, hey, this is not appropriate. This is not who we are. I see these young guys now walking around with their pants sagging off their behind, and if you say something to them, they want
You have a problem.
they want to fight. But
Right,
they don't even know where it came from. I worked in the penitentiary for 20 years. Do you know where it came from? It came from the penitentiary. It's how guys in the penitentiary let one another know what kind of sexual behavior they were into.
right,
So if your pants were sagging off your behind, that meant you took it up the rear end.
right.
But see, we don't have the kind of culture anymore. So we're talking about trying to save a community, trying to save a culture. We won't get to the grassroots because preachers won't even talk about this stuff.
Now I'll tell you something interesting, and not to politicize because we want to keep it, but
No, hey, I'm here. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm
okay,
with it.
okay. Well, one of the things that JD Vance said when he was asked about it, because I guess that's one of the questions that they're asking while they're on the campaign trail, and he said, "Well, maybe grandpa and grandma got to step it up a little bit." And it was amazing to see the response to that, because the simple question, "What are you going to do to make childcare more affordable?" He
Yeah,
said, maybe grandpa and grandma got to step it up a little bit. And to me, made perfect sense. I wanted to give him a standing ovation. Because it goes back to the basis. Like, if you can't handle it on your own, if you didn't put the provisions in place to be able to handle it on your own, then yes, your family steps in there, your community steps in there, your neighborhood steps in there, and they help you accomplish your goal, which is raising that child in a protected environment. But to just expect me to go and tell the private sector that you need to adjust those prices so that I can put my child over there, yeah, I just thought that was absolutely absurd.
here's the thing to your point. So believe it or not, whether we're talking the Christian community, the Black community, however you say it, we are not designed to do life alone. This whole idea that everybody's got to get their own is something the government came up with to keep us separate so that they could tax the dog crap out of us. Okay?
Right.
Because there used to be something called homesteading. And what homesteading was, there was one big family home. And then as the family grew, they would build another home on the same property. And so Big Mama's house was right here and the other house was here. So if the grandkids, somebody needs somebody, y'all go over to Big Mama's house. And the
Mhm.
grandkids would go play in Big Mama's yard so Mama could go to work.
Right.
That's the way it was. Well, guess what? I figured this out. I was talking to my family a few years ago, and I said, the Kennedy family is one of the wealthiest families in America. I said they have a family home. It's in
Yeah.
Kennebunkport, Maine. You can't not know where it is. They talk about it all the time. The Kennedy now everybody in the family has their own. They do their own thing, but the family home is in Kennebunkport, Maine. Donald Trump, one of the wealthiest men in America, the family home right now is at Mar-a-Lago. So I asked my family, I said, where's our family home? Where do we go when all hell breaks loose? What do we do when we need to come together to survive? So you know what we did? We sat down, made a plan, and right now I live in a home. My wife and I, my daughter, her husband, and my two grandkids all live in the same home.
Wow.
And we said, this is the family home. We're going to pool our resources so that our family can be secure. Now we're still talking about child care, how to save the community, how to help the community. My daughter works every day. Guess what she does? If she got something to do and she can't take her kids with her, she'll come right downstairs. Daddy, can I leave the girls with you for a while? Yep, you sure can.
Yeah.
Child care is not a problem for us. We don't let it be a problem because we've learned that we have to function as a community. We have to function together. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I was listening. What would you say? Well, let me back up. How do you recommend that we address any barriers as a black community? Any barriers? Too often, we spend too much time, I believe, on the negatives, and we seem to have, and I'm speaking in a general sense, the black community has a fascination with the negative. We love to espouse about the negatives, and we're not solution minded. Um, how do you recommend we address the barriers financially, culturally, educationally that prevent many black families from, accessing proper estate planning services? They're available, but what is it that's stopping us from making that step?
My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. That's the scripture. People are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And so instead of going to credible sources to get knowledge, they listen to a bunch of hood logic, you know. I got my first insurance license in 1991. I was still working in law enforcement. I wanted to do something to make some extra money. So I decided to get an insurance license. One of the first guys I met with happened to be a black man. He lived in a middle class part of town. It wasn't great, but it was nice. Uh, but his home, when you walked inside, his home was gorgeous. I mean, outside, it just like an average home. But when you walked inside, you could tell his wife had put just a lot of energy into making her home a home, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And so I'm sitting talking with them. I have one of my friends with me. I'm talking with them, and they called me about an appointment to talk about life insurance. So I say to him as I'm wrapping up my presentation, I say, Mr. Jones, um, I'm recommending just a simple $150,000 policy. I said it'll help your wife. If something should happen to you, maintain the style of living that she's become accustomed to, because it's clear to me you've gotten her accustomed to a very comfortable lifestyle. I
Mhm.
said, and so I'm sure you would want her to be able to maintain that lifestyle if something were to happen to you, because she would no longer have your income, but this will let her replace at least a portion of your income so that she can maintain that lifestyle. This guy leaned forward. His wife was sitting right next to him and said these words to me. He said, I'm going to take care of her while I got her. When I leave, she need to get another man to take care of her.
Mm.
Wow.
This is what's wrong with our community. We're so scared to help the next generation do better that we'll literally do nothing. It's almost like it's almost like burning down your house because it's cold outside. Well, if I burn down the house, at least I'll be warm as long as the fire is going. That's the dumbest thing in the world. But this is the way we're taught to think. We're not taught to think about the next generation. We're not taught to think about making things better. We're not taught to think. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to correct our thinking, and we have to stop allowing these celebrities, these political parties to give us this garbage thinking that says, it's every man for himself. No, listen, the first thing we did, okay, let me ask y'all something. When you apply for credit, everybody here has applied for credit, right?
Mhm.
When you apply for credit and they ask about your income, what are they asking for?
In normal circumstances, they want to know that you've had some continuity of employment, usually some 2 years. They want your tax returns or W-2s or something to that extent.
But here's what they're usually asking for specifically.
Mhm.
They're asking for not your personal income. They're asking for the income of the household. Because so if my wife works, when I apply for credit, if my wife works, we put our combined incomes together, right?
Right, right.
Guess what happens when you do what I'm doing? And I had to tell my son-in-law this. I said, now when you apply for credit, when they ask you for your income, you ask this question before you tell them anything. Are you asking for the combined household income or are you asking for my individual income? They're
Mm,
usually going to tell you, we want the combined household income. Well, there's 4 working adults in this house.
mm,
So guess what? Our combined income is, when I told the lady what our income was, she said, are you sure? Is that right? I said, yeah, that's right. She said, but I'm talking about your income. I said, I'm talking about my income too. We've increased our buying power because we've learned the power of working together.
together. Wow.
Now, just so y'all understand, other communities understand this. I grew up in Southern California, and I watched this happen as uh, uh, Hispanic families would move into a community. And so they would move into a community, and they would usually get either a rental or a rent to own situation. And 5 families would live in one house. And it would be so uncomfortable because you constantly seeing kids, constantly people in and out the house. But 5 families live in that one house. They all go get jobs and they pool their money until they can afford to get the house next door.
Mm,
Then 2 or 3 families will move to this house, but they're still pooling their resources. Before you know it, within a year or two, they now control 4 or 5 houses on the block because they learned alone we can't get this done, but together we can.
we can.
And this is what we do not do. This is what we do not do. I tell people the black community is not poor. We are the number 1 spenders in the country.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Nobody spends more money than black people.
Right.
We just haven't learned how to pool those resources to work together because we've been taught not to trust one another.
And I know this is a facetious question, but I mean, at this juncture, September 2024, is that possible that we can make such a significant shift towards working together? We spend so much time um, when thinking about the one community that can't seem to get together, the one community that can't seem to, uh, whether it be crime, violence, economic situation, we can't seem to. Is it still a possibility in this day and age?
Um, uh, I have this saying that I say often about the American black community, and I'll say it on your show if you promise not to throw me off.
No, I won't.
The black community, by and large, in America is doomed.
Mm,
We're doomed because we're the only community that doesn't understand the importance of working together. When a friend of mine told me this story, he's older than me. He got into the insurance business before me, and he shared this story with me. He said, when I got in the insurance business, he said the guy who recruited me into the business told me this, and he said at first I was kind of angry. He said I was so mad. Then I realized he was telling me the truth. He said the guy said to him, he said, now listen. He said this is going to be harder for you than it is for most people in this office. And he said why? And the guy said because you're black. And he said I got angry. He said let me explain. He said white people buy from white people. He said Asians buy from Asians. He said Hispanics buy from Hispanics. Arabs buy from Arabs. He said black people will buy from everybody but each other. And my friend told me, he said, I've now lived long enough to understand he was telling the exact truth. I walked into a house right here in Douglasville, Georgia. The people called me. I show up at the house. I say, tell me what your agent told you about your policy. They start telling me what the agent said about their policy. I said, can I see the policy? They hand me the policy. This agent told them this policy was a whole life policy. It would last them until they were 100 years old and blah, 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 blah. I turned to the first page of the policy. I said, right here, it says 30-year term. I said, do you know what that means? And she said, no. I said, it means this policy is for 30 years. I said, this is not a 100-year policy. She said, but the agent said, I said, the insurance company doesn't care what the agent says. The insurance company cares what this contract says.
Right.
She said, well, he told me my premiums will stay the same for the rest of my life. I took her to page 8. I said, here's the amortization table of your policy. I said, your premiums stay the same for the first 30 years. I said, now, it's got a clause in here called a guaranteed renewable clause. It means after 30 years, this policy will renew annually, but the increases will happen annually as well. I said, so your policy, according to what the policy says, your premium can go up to as much as $10,000 a month after 30 years. I said, did your agent explain it to you? No, that's not right. I said, I'm telling you what the policy says, ma'am. This is not my words. I'm showing it to you in black and white.
That's
Now,
crazy.
now her agent didn't look like us. Okay. I'm here trying to help my community. I said, I have a plan where we can fix this now and we can get you out of this situation and get you into a situation that is better for you and your family. I said, are you interested in seeing that plan? She said, yes. I sit there, I explain the plan in detail. I tell them exactly how it's going to work. I show them in black and white in the contract that everything I'm telling them is in the contract. We get finished. I say, how soon would you like to start this plan? You know what she said to me? She said, can you leave this here so I can show it to my agent? I said, so let me get this straight. You want to take my hard work and go to the white agent that lied to you and show him my work so that you can keep him as your agent. I told her, I said, lady, I don't care what happens to you. And I closed my stuff up and walked out. Because this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. I'm just telling you. So that's why I say, and don't get me wrong, I love black people. But love for me is being honest. I think we got to be honest. We do not know how to work together. We do not know how to pool our resources to improve our situations. We also do not know how to do without the instant gratification of having everything now.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, hey, until we're willing to do these hard things and put some things off and say, I've got, for us to live in the house we live in, we had to make some hard decisions. We had to make some hard decisions. But we now have a family home that's almost 6,000 square feet.
Mm.
But we made the decisions that need to be made, and everybody had to adjust their lifestyle. What do I care if I look poor in the street and I come home to a mansion? That don't matter to me. You understand what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
so this is the things that our people don't understand, and because they don't understand and everybody's trying to get their own, we have this tendency to take advantage of one another. When I was doing my real estate business, my business slogan was everybody wins. And so when I put together my deals, I would find out what everybody needed and I would make sure everybody got as close to what they needed as possible so that everybody walks away from the table. I got most of what I needed. I'm good. And that's how I structured deals. Now, did it cost me money? Yeah, it cost me money. But to me, the money wasn't as important as being effective in helping my community and helping the people who were with me in business. And so we formed a real camaraderie to the point to where my business partners would call me, hey, I need to borrow $10,000. It'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't worry about it. Because we had built this nucleus where we were going to look out for each other. You understand? But it's hard to find people that are willing to do that because you got to have people who have high integrity and high character to do that. Where money is not the
I'm
motivation.
calling since I know this probably sounds bad to say, but my expectations of others is real low at this juncture. But I continue to be the individual that I was raised to be. I'm gonna continue to put out the positive energy that, and knowing that my blessings don't come from people. I don't sit around and wait for them because it's not coming. It's
No,
not.
listen, I'm exactly the same way. I tell people all the time, all of my friends are old friends. You know, most of my closest friends, the people that I have confidence in, we've been friends 20, 30, 40 years. And so I know what I get with them. And I know that if they get an opportunity, like if I get an opportunity to make money, Fredrick already knows I'm calling him. Because I don't want to make money. I want us to make money.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? And that is the difference. And trust me, I learned this thinking from white people and Jewish people. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
They do it all the time. They
Yeah.
spend their money with each other. Do you know that in the Jewish community, when $1 is spent, that dollar circulates in the Jewish community 17 times before it leaves the community. 17 times. 17 different Jewish people will touch that dollar before it leaves the community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In Asian communities, I think it's like 7 times. In the black community, the dollar leaves as fast as it comes. We'll spend our money with everybody. A friend of
Hey,
mine, a friend of mine who was a very successful businessman, made an observation one day, and I hadn't even realized it. He said, "It's a stereotype that black people love chicken, fried chicken." I said, "Yeah." He said, "But the stereotype is based on some truth. We do love fried chicken." I said,
right.
"Yeah." He said, "But why is it all the fried chicken places in the black community are owned by Koreans?" He said, "Why don't we own the fried chicken places?" He said, "And here's the truth." He said, "I did some research. Guess who taught Koreans to fry chicken? Black people."
Of course. We teach everyone everything.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
It's amazing.
I'm right here in the historic West End,
Okay.
and my business is helping other people start businesses. I own the West End Community Business Center, and
Awesome.
it's ground zero, right in the middle of the West End. And I will make it a point, and I've had this discussion with Minister Fredrick as well. I make it a point that when a new black business opens up, I'm there first thing. I spend my dollars. I go there. I don't care how absurd the business is. I'm going. But when you walk through this community in particular, I don't care if it's the convenience store, the gas station, what you will see is you see these little stickers, and it's a Korean Business Association right down in the corner. And that's how they're interlocked. So, there was a seafood place, Louisiana Seafood. I went in there one day and I asked the gentleman, I said, you know what? Seems like every one of these seafood places, the exact same design, exact same layout, exact same food that you're selling. And I started picking, I was asking him, like, how do you get into this? And he looked at me almost as if to say, like, I'm not about to give you this game. But he had the little Korean Business Association sticker there, and you go to the one down Cascade, same Korean Business Association. It's right there. So as soon as one opens up, wherever they get their graphics done, wherever they get their fish distributed, wherever it's all coming from the same place, and it's a network. And you would think, with the sheer number of black people in the community, and those that are intelligent or a little more intellectually sound, you would think it would be relatively easy for us to do the same thing. You would think. But as someone has been here in the community, 10 plus years, I will say I'm not um, too excited about the prospects. And when I ran for city council in 2017, and I said it at the time, I said, I swear to you, if I run again, I'm not going to be campaigning to the same people. I told the black people everywhere that I stopped, every campaign stop, every debate, every forum, I said, I'm telling you, if I decide to run again, I'm not going to be campaigning to the same people. I assure you. And that was 2017. And the demographic is changing right in front of our eyes. There was a barber shop that was around the corner, black barbershop. He didn't own the barbershop. It was right in front of a car wash. I made the attempt to buy the building that the barbershop was in. It was an East Indian gentleman, would not sell. Instead, he sold to a gentleman from Honduras. He sold it for $120,000. It was a little cinder block building right over here. The gentleman from Honduras opened up a nice little restaurant. In fact, he was one of the first people to do business with me. And 7 years later, he just signed the paperwork to sell that cinder block building and the car wash behind it for 2.7 million. 7 years. The restaurant was never profitable in 7 years, but there's a developer that just came in and now they want to build, I think, 37 townhomes right over here, right around the corner. This is in the West End.
Yeah.
The Indian gentleman would not sell to me because we were black. My father and our business partners went over there, sat down, would not sell that building to me. He just refused to even entertain the thought. But we kept pressing, sold to this gentleman, and now 7 years later, he's selling for $2.7 million. So this is the type of thing that's happening in the community, and we keep pressing. I keep reaching out to black people and say, look, you need to be on the forefront, be on the cusp of these changes that are taking place. Don't keep sitting back and complaining about the big bad white man or corporate America coming in here and taking everything. How do you get access, get loans that are available if need be, pool your resources, buy these buildings, these old warehouses that's been sitting around the corner here for years, 4 years. Now every one of them is a brewery, a restaurant, pizza shop. I mean, they're coming. And so to what you were saying, I mean, I keep pressing. I don't lose hope in our community. I believe there are some of us that still can do and will do good by the community. But for those of us that feel like they're behind in this whole wealth building process or estate planning, what's some of the steps that you would say that people could take, people that are in their 40s and their 50s, maybe even older, and realizing that, you know what, I waited a little bit too long, wasted a little bit of time, but I want to make good on it for my children and for my grandchildren going forward?
Okay. This is a lengthy answer, but I'm gonna hit it real quick. When you're young, you don't have a lot of cash usually, but you have something that's more valuable than cash. You have health. And so insurance is really cheap.
Mhm.
So what I tell people is when you're young, buy as much insurance as you can buy. Figure out a way to make it work. I wish somebody had told me this. I would have bought a whole lot more than I did. You know what I mean? Simply because as you age and as your health begins to decline, insurance becomes more expensive and it's not as easy to do. Um, in the South, term products became really big in the South because of a guy by the name of Art Williams. He was a football coach who started selling insurance, founded a company by the name of A.L. Williams, and his slogan was "Buy term, invest the difference." He said term is the most affordable insurance. Well, now we know that it's the most affordable and the most expensive. So the question becomes, how could it be both? It's most affordable on the front end, meaning that it's when you're young and healthy, it's easy to buy. A person in their 30s who is a non-smoker, their health is good, their weight is good, can buy a $500,000 term policy for like $15-20 a month. Okay. It becomes the most expensive because less than 1% or right around 1 to 2% of term policies ever pay a claim. So now it becomes more expensive. Here's why. Because you kept it for 20 years, 30 years. Now it either has to renew or you have to buy a new one. Now it's more expensive. Or what happens most often is people see the end coming and now they're in a better financial situation and they convert it. They buy something more permanent. So term can be both affordable and expensive. That's just the reality of it. So what I tell people to do is let's learn how to use multiple products to accomplish our goals. And our people don't understand this, but if you're gonna, there is a way for me to set you. If you, especially if you're one of these people, if you're, let's say you got some health problems, insurance companies have already rejected you. You're just concerned about doing something for your heirs, and you have cash. But you know that having that cash, you can't keep it in the bank because the bank is only insured up to $250,000. And guess what? If things get really bad, they ain't even gonna pay that. So what do? I can design a program for you where we put the money in an insurance policy, and I can teach you how to become your own bank. And people don't understand. This is one of the greatest systems. I just had a guy, a close friend of mine, doesn't look like us. Okay, got a bonus on his job. First thing he did was call me. He said, I got this bonus on my job. What should I do? I said, how much is the bonus? He told me. I said, okay. Have you dealt with the tax implications? He said, not yet. I said, okay. Let me put some things together for you. Here's what I put together for him. I put together a program for him where he invested $500,000. His contract has guaranteed performance in it. No matter what the economy does, the insurance company has guaranteed him that in 10 years, that $500,000 is going to turn into $1 million. Now, people go, well, that's slow money, but it's sure money. There's no chance of loss for him. The insurance company has guaranteed that this is what will happen. We also set him up with a life insurance policy that as that money, as the income from that other product starts to kick in, it goes straight into his life insurance policy and starting to gain him cash value. And now we're teaching him by the time this is all done, you'll be your own bank. I told him, I said, you need to get your own, you need to get a trust, you need to get some things in place. I said, because you're going to be your own bank. I said, when you want to borrow, when you want to buy a car, you're not going to go to the bank and apply for a loan. You're going to borrow the money from yourself. And when you pay it back, you're paying the interest back to yourself. And your money is still sitting there earning interest the whole time. I said, it's the greatest system you ever want to see. And when I sat down and explained it to him, his eyes lit up. He got it instantly. He said, how soon can we make this happen? He jumped all over it. I've sat and had the same conversation with our people who had $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And I said, okay, here's what's going to happen. You got this money. You're going to go out here and spend. You're going to buy a new car. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to do that. And in about 6 months, you're going to be broke. I said, but if you let me put you in a plan, your life won't change immediately. But if you'll give it time, your life will be changed forever. You know what they tell me? Nah, I don't trust that. Yeah,
Some people. Some
yeah.
people.
And I'm telling you, these are real programs. This is real stuff. I'm not talking about monopoly money. I'm not talking about pie in the sky. I'm talking about real products that do. Okay, let me ask y'all something.
And what I believe I'm also hearing you say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is when you're buying your own policy, for instance, my daughter is 24 this year. So you're saying you should be buying one, purchasing one for your child as well at the same time. Because if she's not aware that these things are available, don't just do it because you want to make sure that she's taken care of when you're gone, but make sure that she's beginning to build up from this point.
Make sure you protect her insurability when she's not able to protect it herself. She's 24 right now. She's probably in great health. She probably doesn't have a lot of bad habits. So, guess what? You can get her a policy really cheap. And what that policy does, it protects her insurability so that in the future, when she's 34, 44, she doesn't have to worry about qualifying for an insurance policy. She's got one. Hopefully, you bought a permanent policy, and all she's got to do is start putting money in it to keep it going. Now, I'm going to tell you what policies I like. I like index universal life policies. I will warn you, every agent doesn't know about them. Every agent doesn't know how to design them. If they're designed wrong, they will fail miserably. These policies come down to the design and the knowledge of the agent knowing how to design them. If I go buy an index universal life policy, and this is what a lot of agents do, they sell it to you on what's called minimum premium. What you have just done is you've bought an advanced term policy because in about 30 years, that policy is going to run out because there's no money being deposited, there's no cash being developed.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? What you want to do is buy them on target premium because that allows you to put money in there and that money begins to grow. There are no losses. This is the greatest product they ever came up with. It's the only product that gives you market-like returns without losses. So your product will tell you what your top interest rate can be. Let's say it's 12%, and then it's going to tell you the worst you can do is zero. So let's just use for example, you have $10,000 in the policy, and in this year, let's say the market does well, and you get 4%. Well, now the following year the market does bad, the bottom falls out. Only thing the government's going, only thing the oh, sorry, not the government, only thing the insurance company's going to do is give you a zero for that year. You take no losses.
Your principal is always protected,
Your principal and your earned interest. The
and
interest
your
you earned, you keep it. You
and this
just
is based on the S&P,
you,
right?
you can get them based on the S&P. They now have them based on various markets. What some companies are now doing is letting you diversify the markets you want to follow. But the S&P is the oldest and most secure. So a lot
Right.
of people put, like, one company lets you put a percentage. Like one that I designed, the guy said, "Well, I want the S&P to be the most." So we put 50% on the S&P, and then we put so much on this one, so much on that. And so, but he was still guaranteed that no matter what that market did, if the bottom fell out, you just get a zero. You get a goose egg for that year, and then when the calendar resets, we start judging the market again. It's the
So
great.
there's no individual stock, but on market funds like mutual funds, S&P, those types of things.
Yeah, there's no stock.
No individual
That's why they call it market like returns.
market like
They
return.
they the insurance company goes into the market with all these policies and starts buying, and then based on the market, we can give you this much of return. We can give you this much of return. If the market crashes, okay, everybody gets a zero. It's a great product, man. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it before in my life.
So all these years of, because you've been doing insurance now, how many years?
I got my first insurance license in
91.
'91.
91.
Mm-hmm.
So what if I were to ask you what you felt was your most effective marketing tactic, is outside of word of mouth, but word of mouth is always your best selling point. But what do you, because where the reason I'm asking you this is because this is so important. This is so important, in particular in the Black community. These are the kind of conversations that we need to be having when we're sitting around the dinner table, that type of thing. What has been the most successful approach for you that you've gotten, the greatest response from?
You just said it, word of mouth. Nothing beats it. Most of my stuff comes from friends and friends of friends. You'd be surprised how many times my phone rings and I go, "Hey, this is Everett," and they say, "Hey, Everett, um, my name is so and so. I'm a friend of so and so, and I've got this problem, and I was wondering if you could help me." I spend more time on the phone just educating people for free, but I call it sowing seeds.
Right.
Because here's what happens. Because I took the time to educate them for free and give them some knowledge, when something good happens, guess who they call? "Hey, you helped me with this. I was wondering if you can help me with this," because they know they can trust me. They know I'm going to tell them the truth. And so that's what I do. I just tell them the truth. I say, "Here's how this works. Here's what you need to do." And I encourage them to do it with me, but I don't demand it. I can help you. But believe it or not, it's all been word of mouth. It's all been word of mouth. And if I'm being really honest, I had in 2000, I want to say it was around 2005, is when I first got what's called a PNC license, property and casualty, which is what allows you to sell home, auto, and things like that. And I did it because I had an opportunity to own a nationwide insurance agency. And so I went into my nationwide insurance agency, and when you go in, you have the way I went in, you have a zero book. You have to build your book from scratch. And I was watching the way all of my classmates were building their book. They were focusing on black businesses and black community and blah 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 blah. And I said, "I'm not gonna do that." I said, "That's gonna be a problem." And so when I built my book, I built it with my friends, people and their friends. Turned out that 80% of my book were people who didn't look like us.
Mm.
But here was the benefit. Those people paid their bills. So every third Friday night when we had to close the books for the month, I was leaving the office going home. All of my friends were calling people chasing premiums
Mm.
because our people just don't know how to be loyal to one another. They don't know how to do what's supposed to be done. And so I had a book that was 80 to 85% people who didn't look like us. I didn't have those problems. Now, did I reach out to our community? Yes, I did job fairs in our community. I did educational things in our community. I did all this stuff and got no business for it
Wow.
because our people didn't appreciate the education. But when I did the same things in other communities, they thanked me by saying, "How can I contact you? I want you to look at this for me. I want you to do this for me." And that's how I got business.
You do hazard insurance, homeowners insurance as well?
I can. I have to say with an asterisk right now, when the economy tightened, insurance companies panicked, and so here's what happened as a result of them panicking. Insurance companies understand that when the economy, so I'm gonna say this: all insurance companies are Republican, whether they think so or not. Okay, because here's what they understand: when the economy gets bad, claims go up. And so they have to do something to adjust and prepare for that and keep it from happening. So one of the things they do is raise rates. The other thing they do is they start raising deductibles. Most people don't even know if somebody's listening to your program and their homeowners policy has a percentage based deductible. Just know that 1 or 2% deductible is not 1 or 2% of your premium. It is or 1 or 2% of your claim. It's 1 or 2% of the home value as it is assessed by the insurance company. So your home value assessed by the insurance company is different than your home value assessed by the county tax agency. You go to the county tax agency, they may say your home is assessed at $800,000, but your insurance company is going to say that home is $1.2 million. Why?
Now, why is that? Because I've found actually, and through my experience, that the government tax agent, well, the tax assessors, they are not as conservative as we like to think. So if you're telling me that the insurance companies are even less conservative,
Here's
then
why. Your insurance company is basing your value on replacement cost. What is it going to cost if this home burns to the ground and we have to rebuild it? That's what they're basing it on. So right now, replacement cost is at an all-time high. Lumber's at a high, nails are at a high, everything's at an all-time high. So your house that was evaluated 5 years ago, I guarantee you if they do an assessment now, they're going to say, well, we got to assess it at this value now. And it's based on the replacement cost. Now, agents play a little game. They play little games to get around it, and some of it is okay, some of it isn't. Okay, because you have to build in there for what's it called? Ordinance or law is one of the things you have to build in there. So if your house was built 10 years ago, certain laws may have changed, and when they get ready to rebuild your house, it may cost more because there's been law changes that they have to adjust for. So there should be a coverage in your policy called ordinance or law that covers that. They also have to make for changes in the economy, cost of living, things like this. So agents play with that, and they know how to get around it a little bit. But ultimately, you want to make sure that when your home, if you have a total loss, if you have a decimate, that you get all new stuff, that you get your stuff replaced at cost, at replacement cost. And so that's why it's so expensive. Think about this. In 2005, I can insure a 2,500 square foot house for about $900 in Georgia, and everybody thought that was high. Now that same house is almost $2,500 a year.
wow.
Yeah.
Um, we definitely got to talk. We definitely got to talk. And we need to this is a conversation that needs to go on, and once again, like, we need to pool our resources. For instance, I'm going over here, there's a place called Monday Night Garage, which is right around the corner, and Tuesday night. We're doing it from 5 to 8. They're doing basically like a city hall where they come together and just a town hall. They come together, talk about what's impacting, and there is a significant divide in this community between and it's almost done purposefully. If you go to the MPU meetings, you'll see. Mostly us, people that look like us in the various MPU meetings. But then if you go to the West End community development, you'll see people that look like them. So they're not coming together to have these important discussions. And at MPU, we're talking about things like crime, things that need to be addressed because people are not progressing because of these things. Whereas at the neighborhood development, they're talking about future progress. Like they're talking about what are we going to do? What developments are we doing here in the community? That's affordable housing, things of that nature. And these communities are not coming together to have these conversations, and that needs to change. But the people, go ahead.
So I have a question right there. And
Hmm.
I've been very quiet the whole podcast because I wanted to take an opportunity, for Pastor Spencer to speak and me to listen and listen because I'm always in a learning mode. But you just said something right there that just caught my attention. You got the NPU and you got the development community. Two different conversations, right? In the NPU, what I think I just heard you say, the conversation that goes forward, and it's a needful conversation about, the crime and this and that and that and that and that, right?
Right.
But then you go over here to the development community, they're having a whole nother conversation that is not being had in the NPU community.
Mm-mm.
Well, in the development community, don't they already have it with the crime that's taking place over in the community that the NPU is discussing? When development comes in, they already got the answer for.
It's a different conversation. Even surrounding crime, for instance, in the MPU, I'll never forget. I was there one week, and someone brought up about crime that was transpiring at the BART station, the West End BART station, and her complaint
Hmm.
was that the 4 police officers there were on their phones. They were on their phones, and they weren't able to see this crime transpiring. And she saw it.
Right.
That's what they were talking about.
Uh-huh.
You guys need to be a little more attentive. You need to,
Hmm.
that's good. You go over to neighborhood development, West End, the WEND, and they're talking about we want to take a vote on implementing this new technology, which allows you to pinpoint where the sound of bullets are coming from. It's a
Hmm.
technology that's being utilized widely in major, cities like New York, Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, and
Right.
so they're taking a vote. They're not sitting around saying, "Well, I was over here at the train station and like the cops weren't really paying attention," and then the police officer that's there, he's like,
Right.
"Oh, sorry, we'll try to do a little better next time." Whereas over
Right.
here in neighborhood development, they're like, "Look, we don't have time for this. So this is what we're implementing so that we can put this in place so that we can move on to bigger and better things of what we want to do." And so,
Right.
yes, the conversations need to be combined. But like I was saying, at the MPU, you see mostly us. The woman who was over the neighborhood development was a Jewish woman. She
Uh-huh.
was right,
Uh-huh.
right around the corner on Oglethorpe, a few doors down from my folks. And
Right.
so that's what they were over there. They got their snacks and little juice and everything, and they're talking about voting on businesses coming in. I mean, redevelopment of the West End Mall. That's the kind of stuff they're talking about. So,
Right.
um, yeah,
So in
yeah,
so inside of all of that conversation that they're having, guess what? The crime factor is already figured into it.
absolutely.
Development is going to take care of the crime. Let me give you a prime example. The Capitol View community.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was one of the first first, when it was under the radar, Mr. Adassa. None of the other investors in Atlanta, as far as going into the depressed neighborhoods, that section right there, I was one of the first ones in there. That I did a lot of stuff, solo. I didn't hang out with a lot of other real estate investors. Wherever I was moving, whatever part of the city I was moving to, I'm going in undercover, under the radar, yada yada yada. Let me camp out. Let me get my hands on these deals, et cetera, et cetera. So Capitol View was unheard. Well, no investors were in that community at that time. I mean, dilapidated properties on almost every other street in the inside of that community. And I remember my first time driving up in there, and I said, God, oh my God, I done drove into a gold mine. Now watch this. It was open air. It was open air market, right? You know what we mean by open air. Just like drive up to the drive through window at Burger King, place your order. Well, it was the same thing with the drug market in Capitol View, right? But I'm looking past the boys on the corner. I'm looking past them because I see the gold mine. I was like, oh my God, this is a gold mine. So I did, before Capitol View became a buzzword to any of the other investors. By the time Capitol View became a go-to spot, I had already, with a couple of other partners, had already went in there and rehabbed and flipped 5 houses. Already, all within a square mile radius of each other on different streets. But here's my point. When you just talked about the difference in the meetings, right? The development conversation and the NPUs. Well, one of the properties that you could pull up, Mr. A, I don't care, 12 noon, the boys were so heavy, you pull up at the stop sign, 5 of them surrounded your car. Well, I got it, what you need, yada, 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 and all of that, right? Okay, all right, I don't need none of that, but I'm looking at right behind you what I do need. Property ready to fall to the ground. That's what I need right there. But right as you pull through the intersection at the 4-way stop sign, a house that's been redeveloped. I'm talking about beautiful.
Hold on, Mr. Norman. Hold on, Mr. Norman, because Pastor Spencer is saying that he has to go.
Okay.
So we wanted to
Okay.
make sure that we thank you so much for your time, Pastor Spencer. And we definitely have to continue this conversation, because what we're talking about now is basically whether it be you coming into the West End or into these meetings, making a presentation, I don't know, 30 minutes, hour-long presentation, come in, talk to groups of individuals that need to hear, because the one thing that I will say, the most important thing when I was running for city council, that most people were looking for more than anything was information. They were looking for information, access to information. And, that the main reason, the catalyst for me even deciding that I wanted to run for city council was because our city councilwoman was not accessible. And so if she's our connection to, we have people in the community, elderly people that didn't know that there were programs in the community where they could get upgrades on their property, just so their properties can stay in line with the increased property taxes, that were happening because people were coming in and the property values were going up. And imagine sitting here and you've been in your house for 40 years, and then these new investors or new buyers come in and the property values go up, and you're sitting there with your dilapidated home. And yes, one of the good things was that the city and the county did have resources to come in, get your roof fixed, get your HVAC done, make improvements to your home. So you're not sitting there in a dilapidated home, and you get to enjoy some of the benefits of what's going on around you, but they didn't have access to the information. And so it was the job of those people that were in City Hall to, letting people know that, hey, this is what's available to you. And they weren't doing that. So yes, I believe what you were talking about is very important information. I thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I look forward to having a conversation, continuing to have this conversation again, because we need to know about specific products. When you're talking about the index, when you're talking about term, we need to know these specific products, details surrounding these individual products, and how they can be beneficial to our families and our community. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'd be honored to come on again whenever your schedule and my schedule cohesively work together. I'll gladly come on again and just to get to know you better. You're right here in Georgia, so we could always connect and see how we can work together. I tell people, if you're okay with Norman, you're okay with me.
Yeah, that's a good brother right there. We
Yeah.
have a lot of laughs. We have a
Yeah.
lot of laughs. So
He does like to laugh. I will say that. He does like to laugh.
yeah, so it was a pleasure. Minister Norman, we're gonna
Yeah.
check off because we're at the 1 hour and 15 minute. But I wanna that conversation that we were going into,
Yeah.
the top of our next pod, can we start there? Because we need
Absolutely.
because you that capital view, brother. I definitely want to dig into that because I'm not even gonna talk about it now. We're gonna talk
Yeah.
about it next time because I
Okay.
want you to bring all the information and we're gonna chop it up.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you
Absolutely.
so much, brother.
Absolutely, Mr. A. God bless you, sir.
God bless you.
All right.